All right.
So we could start on the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah, we should. I just brought it up in the last one.
He's got one note. He's got one note that he loves to hit.
Ding. No, because it's so good. Okay.
Have I told you about the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Okay, we're live. Welcome, everyone. My name is Heath, and this is the Meet Your Species podcast. Today we have Josh.
I'm human.
He's very human with his mustache.
Hey, ladies. My friend, this is for an acting role, and so I shaved down, and I posted a picture. The first time I ever shaved down, and my friend's like, "There's the mustache." Oh, and here's a hilarious story. So I'm in Whole Foods, and I'm not used to people cringing from me. Mm-hmm. And I forgot I had it, right? Like, I'm just walking around normal. I forget that I have a mustache. And I'm walking down Whole Foods, and this lady sees me, and she's got this little girl beside her. She comes and she tucks the girl behind her on the other side, and they both cringe against the aisle and walk down, putting as much space between me. I had that moment of, oh, I'm the monster now.
I'm the mustache monster. They used to be so cool.
Yes.
I never thought they looked good, but I was biased because I was little. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they are anymore in the U.S.
Cool or...
Yeah, mustaches. They've lost their coolness.
It's weird because, they've kind of come back a little bit. There's a sub-segment, I think, but it's not... No, it's not a broad-based thing.
It's not like it was.
Yeah, so...
Anyway, so Josh, we met... I think when I came back from India the first time, mm-hmm. you told me there was somebody who's interested in the class or something.
We met through somebody.
Did we?
Yeah, because you were an actor. Somebody was like, "He's an actor, you should meet him."
Oh, okay.
But I don't remember who it was. Somebody important.
Thanks, that person. But anyway, yeah, it's been kind of cool because we just kept popping up. I would see you at the ashram in India, mm-hmm. and then randomly, just here. And then when I got back, you had us come over for the Devi full moon ceremony, which mm-hmm. is all really nice. So it's just been a very interesting and unexpected friendship that's arisen.
We have all these weird, random Isha connections too. It's oh, you know this person. Oh yeah, you know this person.
It happens.
It does. So...
Yeah. But anyway, on the podcast, what I like to do is give people a bit of context about you, mm-hmm. who you are and what makes you tick. So if you don't mind, I just kind of dive in a little bit. Well,
I'm in Atlanta, born and raised. I'm I guess, true Southerner or something, whatever that means. Raised very traditional suburbanite white Christian household, and was raised in this is the way the world is. And as I grew, I realized the world didn't necessarily fit within my views. So rather than, I guess, what most people tend to do, I expanded my views. Rather than try to fit the world in my box, I allowed my box to grow. So I was raised that way, and I've kind of been on a exploration to see what, I guess, life is on a whole bunch of different levels. Once you realize that it's not what your original understanding is, then the big question is what is it? And it's interesting because I was talking with a friend about this the other day. We were talking about I took a class in cell development when I was studying at a med school. And so what it is you have this organism, right? So it starts out as one cell, a embryo, but it's not an embryo yet. But it starts out as one cell, and then it divides. And after it gets a couple, it has to be able to tell the top from the bottom, right? So there's this chemical gradient that allows the anterior and posterior sides to differentiate. Okay, so we were talking about what life is. This is basically just a bunch of molecules and stuff. So how is that different in function than, we'll say, the phone? The phone, unless your phone isn't working right, doesn't automate itself and start going and think of it as part of it, just responds to instructions. So why is this bunch of cells me? Okay. Mm-hmm. And how does it all function as a coherent whole? And so within the cells of the developing embryo, so we have this understanding there's a chemical gradient, that there's an interior, there's a top side and a bottom side, your head and your feet. But what is it that makes that chemical gradient. So we have all these answers to all these questions, but the most fundamental questions of like, what is life? What is any of it? We don't know. Like science doesn't know. And that always bothered me. You know, I'd sit in class and it would be like, you're studying evolutionary biology and they're talking about how the brain develops. And they're talking about consciousness. And they think that consciousness is this thing called an epiphenomenon. And what an epiphenomenon is an epiphenomenon is a side effect. So say sickle cell anemia, the sickle cells were evolutionary selected for because it prevents malaria. The anemia is kind of like an epiphenomenon. It's a side effect of this thing that prevents malaria. And I may have that a little bit off, but it's like not, if you develop something and something comes as a side effect, it's not the original purpose. And they think that consciousness is an epiphenomenon. Like it's this big accident that we have this brain, this whatever it is, that there's this consciousness of this sense of ourselves. And there's a whole group of scientists, at least there was 20 years ago when I studied it, we may have moved past that, they think that that's what consciousness is. This whole, we're all walking around with this like side effect that we think is ourselves. But what struck me is that we don't know. Like we don't know so many of the most fundamental aspects of life. And those questions always bother me. And so like, I guess I'm a seeker. Like I kind of want to know the answers. I'm not okay with, I don't know. And I think if we were looking to encapsulate me, that's what that would be, is like, it just doesn't sit well with me to be like, okay, well, we don't know that, so accept it on faith and it's in someone else's hands.
Just it's fine.
Exactly. We're just going to brush past that, go get married, get a job, have a kid and die. And just don't worry about the stuff that we don't know.
So, but was this something that was always with you, or do you think it happened when you were in like med school thinking about this? Or
no, it's always been there. So like we'd be in Bible studies, Bible school, like Sunday school. That's what we called it, Sunday school.
I had to go on Monday.
Yeah, on Monday. Sunday school's on Monday, man.
They had like, well, when you're like, I joined the Catholic Church when I was 6 because I really wanted this candle that they give.
I mean, the best reason to join a church.
I don't know why they let me on that reason, but they did. So, but then I was sort of, because, you know, my parents wanted to instill discipline and following through with whatever you decided. So I had to go to church school for like 6 years and get confirmed and all this.
Oh man.
And, which is fine. It was okay. I just really didn't like it after about a month. So
like, I mean, we didn't have a choice. So I never even thought of it as like, do I like it or dislike it? It's just what we did Sunday mornings. But I'd have questions, you know, it would be like, I mean, even, you know, the most basic ones of God created everything. God is omniscient. God is omnipresent. God is everywhere. So he created everything. Then where does evil come from? He must have created that too. But if God is all good, where does evil come from? Right? Like some of these things, and I'd have actual questions. I'm like, okay, so, and I'm trying to understand, because like, this is what we believe. So what about this that I have a question about? And so I'd ask the question, people will get mad. And they're like, well, that's for God to answer. And I'm like, but that, I don't know. Like, why can't he tell me now if he's up there? Right. So it really bothered me. These aren't things that people in my Sunday school, the people who are the true believers, cared about, because to them, like, the answers were already there. Right. But to me, I'm like, okay, this doesn't, and I'm not here to say that faith or whatever doesn't make sense, but it's that leap of faith that you take, that it's like, okay, not everything adds up. And some people are just okay with that. And I never was. And it actually got me in trouble for a while, because I would ask those questions. And I realized that people thought me asking those questions I was called a rebel. I was like, people are like, why can't you just accept it? Why can't you just believe? And I'm like, well, I'm trying, but how does this work? Like, tell me how it works. Like, tell me the mechanics of it. And what I realized is people in general don't know the mechanics of it. I actually even got to the point of reading. Do you know what apologetics are? The apologies. It's in depth. Basically, it's a theological exploration in depth on what would be considered like an academic basis. And people write these long apologetics on, this is why our beliefs are true, and try to use like science and rationality and all that sort of stuff. When the truth is it just comes down to like, this is kind of what I believe, right? And it resonates with me, and it's what I believe. And so it took me a while to get to that, because I thought everybody was on the same quest to know.
Oh,
right?
Apparently not.
Yeah, not everybody is. Most people just kind of want to like have their faith and have what they believe and go about their normal day, and that's what it is, and they don't want to know. So like, I think that, it's always been there. I've always had questions. I've had teachers who loved me and teachers who hated me, because I'm like asking questions and trying to get to the bottom of it and figure out what's going on. And so the teachers who just want to do their thing and go home and have their glass of wine and wake up and do it again tomorrow and cash their check, they hated me. But I didn't understand it, because I wanted to know.
Well, what to do?
What I realized is I don't have a choice. That was the weirdest thing to me, is I tried to change that about myself, because I always thought it was wrong. And at some point I was like, okay, this is just who I am. And the conclusion that I came to, I was like, okay, if God exists, we'll presuppose that God exists, right? And he created me this way, then he's got to be cool with it, right? Like, he's not going to send me to hell for all eternity to like
For the thing he made you.
Exactly, right? Like, it had bothered me, because I'm like, okay, eternity is a long time, and to be tortured for eternity is not a very good thing. So I was like thinking I was going to hell, because I just had all these questions, and I was like, okay, well, that's the rationale that I can do, is like, if somebody up there created me, and if I'm that way, and I can't change it because I couldn't, then he's probably not going to send me to hell for that.
Fair enough.
It's a weird little logical trick, isn't it?
I mean, especially when you're younger, you gotta find some way to make sense.
Yeah, makes sense, and hopefully not be tortured for eternity.
Preferably.
It's not really how I want to go out.
So, paint a more, because like I think a lot of people would be curious, what is Atlanta like? Because I didn't even grow up here. I grew up in a bunch of different places. So kind of paint a picture. What was a childhood like growing up here?
So I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up about 35 miles from here in Marietta, and it was a very, what you'd think of suburbia. We had our little pool, and we had our neighborhood, and we had our things we did and played outside, and it was pretty like, lots of outside time, lots of playing out in the yard, just hanging out with friends out there. Like, that's how a lot of unstructured time. And then like played a little bit of tennis, swam a little bit of music. It was just a very, honestly, white bread life.
White bread.
It was very like, milk toast, that sort of stuff. And like, everybody just kind of went to school, you get your grades, you're going off to college, you're doing this, you're doing that. Most of my friends are married with children now, and wonder why I'm the weird one going to India and doing all that. But that's what it was. I think it's different now, because the internet gives you access to. So I grew up and never had really come downtown. Like, I'd maybe gone to the Shakespeare Festival once, but like, in terms of coming into the city, it was this place that seemed far away. But now kids, if you have, the internet, and you see things happening in Atlanta, and of events, and of all that stuff, then you go to them. Whereas when I was growing up, like, we didn't hear about stuff, until high school. And my brother was at Georgia Tech, and then I'd come down and go to a show or go to something like that. But it would be, we didn't really come down here much. So, in terms of Atlanta, I don't know what Atlanta was. I do know that it's been refined quite a bit since I did start coming down here in college. It's better restaurants. There's a little bit more culture. But it's also this weird mix of random people who come here for business. So there's not much of Atlanta culture, so to speak. It's kind of like business people coming, and you do what you're supposed to do, and you make money, and transplants.
Yeah. I mean, even for me, since I started coming to Atlanta, which is back in like 2011, 2010, when the film industry started getting all the tax breaks, from that point on, it was like a constant influx of people from LA or wherever else for the film industry. And so even from that point, you notice a lot of like neighborhoods completely changing. The Martin Luther King district getting bought out by, I was actually in the Martin Luther King district back in 2011, and I was talking to
about like down off Boulevard.
Yeah, MLK.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, like some statues and artist paintings and stuff, but it's a lot of like old classic buildings run by people in that community. And even at that time, they were starting to get like moved out. And I asked one of the police officers on the side of the street, like, hey, so I was doing a video for YouTube, which I never ended up making, but I had like recorded a bunch of footage and asked people things. And I asked this police officer, like, what he thought about the area and what was going on. And he told me even at that time, a bunch of people from China and other places were buying up a lot of the buildings along the main street because they knew that they were building a trolley thing that they've now got going. They knew it was going to be a tourist area, so they bought up all those buildings and either renovated them or whatever. And all the people that were living in that area couldn't afford it anymore. Yeah. Starting to get to leave, even back then.
It's a weird thing because it's like I'll use the word gentrification. It'll clean up a neighborhood, but then you don't think about the people who are displaced, and a lot of people don't. And I think like Atlanta's an interesting area because you have this influx of people into the city. And I think that it's starting to go there, but even along the Beltline, it's supposed to have the people who lived along there. They're supposed to kind of be a part of the rising tide, you know, be a part of coming up with it. And it's how to make that happen is, I think, the crux of it. Like, I don't know that anyone, maybe there's a few people who are like, let's go in there and just make our buck and get out and forget those people. But how to make sure it's an inclusive project of, you know, if I'm coming into a neighborhood and the neighborhood's getting remade and rezoned, and so it's higher values, then how do the people, if they can't afford their taxes and they've lived there, their families lived there for 110 years or something like that, like how do you make all that right? And I don't know, I think that's kind of emblematic of Atlantis. We've got a lot of those types of issues that we don't know how to balance. Call it progress. I don't know if it's necessarily progress or not, but progress with making sure that everybody's included in that.
Yeah. How do you lift everybody up? Tricky.
Yeah, it is tricky. It's not easy because it's, I don't want to speak for the people who are being displaced, but like just staying there, living in those conditions, that's not necessarily their best life. But then being like kicked out, that's not right either. So I don't necessarily have the answers. I just can see
question marks everywhere.
Question marks. That's a good, question marks. So, and like even this Piedmont Park's, when I was younger, it didn't seem safe to go in. Maybe that, and now it's safe to go in and it's cleaned up. But I don't know if that's my preconceived notion of, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, not having been down here and not knowing the area, or if it's actually happened.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a friend, I don't remember how long ago this was, but she told me she was having a really hard day. For whatever reason, something happened. And she went into Piedmont Park and just kind of laid down in one of the little grassy ditch areas and was just crying. Like she was super sad. And this homeless guy came up and he was just kind of like comforting her. Like he saw someone's like sad and just gave her a hug. And I don't know, that kind of broke up something a little bit in me, like that feeling of, when you grow up in suburbs, a lot of times these stranger danger is like a thing and don't whatever. But I don't know. I found it quite beautiful. Not that everyone's like that. There's definitely some nutty people out there, but I started, like, I picked up a few hitchhikers and stuff after that and just tried being more open to it. So I just found it interesting. But to think about Piedmont Park and other places in Atlanta being not safe the way that people used to talk about, like New York, like how different it was in the last, 20, 30 years. Yeah. This is very interesting.
Yeah. It's fascinating how a place can shift. And then, I mean, I have hope that Atlanta is becoming a little more, I don't know, clean living, that sort of stuff. I'd love to see a little more environmental friendliness and all those sorts of things. Yeah. So it's a little more, I'm going to use the word progressive. I don't necessarily like the word progressive because it connotates, East or West Coast, Nancy Pelosi and her
The
progressives. But, you don't want it to be like a dirty, nasty city. I think it can be a clean city where, and if it's inclusive, everybody can benefit from it, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, hopefully. So
when you were growing up, or even all the way through like college times, what were the events or people that really helped shape the way you look at the world?
I remember when I was 7, my grandfather got sick and had cancer.
Oh.
And he ended up passing away. And it was my first, kind of my first brush with death, right? Like it was the realization that it's going to end, which is weird because like I remember being up there and it was June and I had his funeral and there was snow in Minnesota in June and he died and it was like, he was always kind of a big presence in our lives, even though he lived far away. He was always a big presence in our lives and my mom talked about him a lot. And then he was just gone and it was kind of one of those things that was like, nothing is permanent, if that makes sense. It was just I don't know how to explain that, but it really was like, I don't want to say it unsettled me in that sense, but it was like my first chance to kind of understand that I'm not immortal. And then when I had actually 2 incidents when I was like 13. I was playing dodgeball on a trampoline. And I actually tore a bunch of ligaments in my neck and had to have like fusion surgery and all this other stuff. Yeah, it was awesome. And then when I was 14, I had appendicitis. I was in the hospital for like 17 days and, there were some complications and it was just, it was weird because like those 2 things. So I was a swimmer. I was an athlete. I was like, king of the world in a certain sense. And then those sorts of things, it's like, I remember I came home from swimming, I went and I ate dinner and then I like threw up all night and was like throwing up for 4 days. And then I went into the hospital, was in the hospital for 17 days and all that. And it's weird to go from like this young, strong person to like
throwing up
feeding tubes and, IVs and all that sort of stuff. So it was just, I think those things affected me from, the sense of like, you can grow up in the suburbs and I think be isolated from a lot of things. You can be isolated from, people and places and kind of think that your own little niche is what the world is. But then you have things that like get you out of your comfort zone. And those things made a huge effect on me, in terms of also questioning what life is, right? Back to that question. What is happening that it can be here one day and it can be not here the next day, and then, it was interesting because like I was a good student. I was in, all those honor societies and that sort of stuff. And you get awards and I actually played the saxophone in Carnegie Hall.
Really?
Yeah. And all this stuff. And I was like captain of the swim team, but I remember like you get those those and it's like great for 10 minutes and then you're just kind of back to being normal. Right. And I remember like those weren't a big deal to me. And I don't know why. It wasn't like, oh, I got a 5 on the AP biology test and I'm like excited. I was just like, oh, okay, I got that. And it was like, okay, on to the next thing. And I don't know if I realized how, because you look back, I don't care how you did in high school, right? Like those things don't actually add up to much. If you got hooked on heroin and like, that matters. Or if you did so well that like, if you're on the either end of the extreme, yes, they can change the trajectory of your life. But for the most of us, it doesn't change the trajectory of our life that much. So those things actually, that was what's weird. Like looking back, is I had these things that I did and I accomplished, but I never really looked at them as big accomplishments. And maybe because I'm, the youngest, and no matter how smart I was, my brother was at Georgia Tech getting a degree, and my sister was in college getting her degree, and so my little biology test in 11th grade didn't matter because my brother's doing 4th level calculus or whatever you do at Georgia Tech.
Right. So I was like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how it was. And I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Like I don't know if that was a positive or a negative. I kind of look back and like. Sometimes like I played a solo in Carnegie Hall. Like that's kind of crazy. But I never looked at it as like a big thing. And then you talk to people and they're like, what, you did what?
Well, give just a brief context of what that means. Like Carnegie Hall, why is that important? Why does that mean anything?
I mean, it's basically the pinnacle of, Carnegie Hall is like music, right? It's like, in a certain sense, it's the, you reach it and you're there. And it's like what people strive for. It's what people do. I played in high school. As part of our band, it was that sort of thing. But they rewrote a solo so I could play it because our trumpet player couldn't play it. So I actually played a different instruments solo as part of some like band competition for high school. But it's still like you're there and you're doing it. And this is where huge... I mean, it's basically like you go to New York, you go to Carnegie Hall to watch a performance, and it doesn't necessarily matter who you go see because it's going to be really good unless you go see some weird like Philip Glass thing. He's doing, you know who he is?
No.
Okay, you got to look him up. He's this weird like composer who's got oh my God, it's crazy. Like I'm trying to think. You know who David Lynch is? You've seen, so it's like he's like the David Lynch wrote like Mulholland Drive, and he's got Elephant Man. He's got all these weird movies that he makes that are like, so it's like the David Lynch. It's like this anti music, right? And he's like, it's so strange. It's strange stuff, and but it's got like weird harmonies and weird rhythms, but it works. And it's like he's got this one thing where it's like all people's voices, and they're like all saying one tone, and he like makes a symphony out of it. All this stuff. No, it's crazy, but it's like fascinating, but it's not necessarily something that you'd go and be like, this is what I want to spend 3 hours watching. You know what I mean? Like I can appreciate the brilliance of it, but not want to sit in on a performance.
Fair enough.
You know how that is. But so Carnegie Hall is just one of those, it's like an accomplishment. It's like if you got into, it's like if you're a business person and you got in Harvard Business School, right? Like it's something that's like, oh, you did that.
That's cool.
Right. And so it's, I mean, it's just kind of fascinating looking at, but
then you said it didn't really mean anything after 50 minutes.
I mean, it was cool, and it was cool being there. And then we finished and we got on the bus, and it's like, you're just you. Right. So I guess in a weird sense, it's not transformative, right? Like it's an experience, but it doesn't change who you are. It doesn't give you like a deeper understanding of life, or it doesn't give that stuff. It's just, and there's, I think it's on PBS. I think it's called The Price of Gold or something like that. And it's about Olympians and how once they reach gold, there's a lot of depression and there's a lot of that stuff because you finally get what you want. And you're kind of like, is that it?
Now what?
Yeah. I mean, the first time I won a triathlon, I was like, okay, that's cool. But it takes 10 minutes before you're like back to planning for the next one. Right. And you're just on that treadmill. And there's nothing wrong with it. But that understanding, really seeing that this isn't it. You know, I can go out and I can see that beautiful girl and I can talk to her and get her phone number and take her out on a date and get married and have kids. But at some point you're like, you see all your friends who are married and have kids and they're not happier than you. Busier, but not happier. And some of them are much more miserable. Right. So it's like, then what's the answer? Because if the whole thing is like, because that's what we see, right? I had this happen. I started for the MCAT. Okay. I took the MCAT. I didn't just study for it. Like, I took the MCAT and I was expecting to get like a 27, 28 on the MCAT and go to medical college, Georgia, and get my med degree and go be a doctor. Well, I got like a 32 or 33. I don't remember exactly.
Is that good?
So 27 is like solid. 27 would be like go to a state school. 32 is go to a higher level school. Like it puts you in it. So I sat down. I was like, okay, now I got to figure out what I want to do with this. Right. So I sit down and I write it out. And I'm like, okay, go here, get this job, work, married, kids, retire, die. Go to this, blah, 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 work, marry, kids, retire, die. It always ends up in the same place, right? And I'm like, what's the point of this? Okay, you're always going to retire and die. And maybe you're not supposed to extrapolate it out that far.
That's your mistake.
I know,
You're
right?
thinking too much.
You stop right here. But like, I thought through it, and like, you're doing the planning. You plan all the way, right? And so I was like, what's the point of all? Like, really, what's the point of all this? I'm racing triathlons. I'm a little bit stressed out. I'm type A. I'm always go, go, go. And the whole thing is like, if I get this, then I'll be happy. And I think we're all on that roller coasters. People are like, I remember doing that in college. Once I get to this test, I'll be able to relax. I'll get it done. This is what's stressing me out. Mm-hmm. And once I get done with that test, it's the next thing. Like, it's maybe 20 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. If you're good a day, you get a day before you start stressing out the next thing. And it's this lie we tell ourselves that if I get this next job, or if I get this next house, or if I get this next car, or if I get this accomplishment, if I play Carnegie Hall, if I win the Ironman Hawaii, if I do all this sort of stuff. Lance Armstrong, in his book, when he first won the Tour de France, I remember he was talking, and something like they had the banquet and he won. He's, something about how do you like them apples? For some reason he was quoting Good Will Hunting. Then he's like, I laid down with my wife and we laid down in our hotel room. Like, we did it. We're here. This is it. And that's, if I remember right, there may be a little epilogue after that, but like, that's basically how they ended the book. And it's very clear that that's not how his life ended. Right? Okay. Like, since then he's kind of self-destructed, or maybe he was in the process of it during, I don't know. But you look at it, and that's how we're believed. The movie, the orchestral part, and like the person's doing this, and like he gets the medal around his neck. Think about the ending of Star Wars, and they get the medals around their neck, and the Death Star is blown up, and little know that freaking Darth Vader's making another one. You know what I mean?
A bigger one this time.
I know, right?
With the same hole.
Exactly, right? But like, that's it. And then if we're taking the Star Wars analogy further, you're like, okay, but then they get rid of Darth Vader and someone else comes along, and someone else comes along, someone else comes along. And if you really step back and look at life, even if you look at your own individual life, like, you think that I get this, I accomplish this, I do this, and then I'm like set, right? Mm. I mean, I bet Mark Zuckerberg was at one point, he was like, man, if I can just make $100,000 off this Facebook thing, I'll be set. Like, I'll be good, And then he's a miserable billionaire. Or Jeff Bezos,
If I could just be the richest person in the world.
Exactly. Well, maybe if I double it. And that's literally what we're doing. We're like, all right, we're going to double down. It's
maybe if I just go to Mars,
exactly.
Then I'll be happy.
You're at we're literally just all at a blackjack table, and we're like, got blackjack. Okay, let's double it down. Let's double our money now. And it's just like that realization. I think I had that at like 21, 22. Okay, this isn't going to make me happy. Like, I'm going to be the same person that I was at 30, at 40, at 50, because you can see it in people. They're the same people, maybe just slightly more miserable if they get what they want. Even the successful ones. Those are the successful ones. And then also seeing Dick Cheney on TV, man. And Dick Cheney's up there, and he's like, we got to go into Iraq and get this, or whatever he was doing. I don't know. That's a horrible Dick Cheney impression.
I was going to say, was that your impression?
That was my impression of Dick. No, that's actually probably my impression of Jon Stewart doing Dick Cheney, right? Because like, it's been filtered. It's been filtered through Jon Stewart doing Dick Cheney. But I remember watching him. And my brother was at war, in the Afghanistan war. No, was he? No, he was in the Iraq war. But he was in the Iraq invasion. And I remember watching Dick Cheney, and I was like, this dude is miserable.
Oh, Dick Cheney?
Yeah, miserable. He won. Like, he's got whatever he wanted in life, and he's miserable. Something's wrong with that. So,
a fair assessment.
No, it is. So like, I realized, like, at 22, I like did that, and I plotted out, and I was like, at what point does my like type A high stress personality change? I think most people have that at like 45 when they get everything they want. And that's what a midlife crisis is. You're like, oh, nothing actually changed. And then they double down. They're like, let me try a new car, or
let me get a motorcycle,
younger wife, or whatever it is, right?
Younger wife.
I mean, how many people do that? They get to 45, and I think it's not that they're unhappy with what they have, and that's the mistake that I think they make. These are, but they're not. It's not that they're unhappy with their wife or their job. It's they're unhappy, and they realize they're unhappy, and then what do? They start trying to change everything around them.
Yeah, which is kind of funny, because if that stuff didn't work the first time, what makes you think the younger model is going to make more sense?
Exactly. So it doesn't. And so you see it, and it's this weird despair you can see amongst people who have gotten what they wanted when they realize that, like, do you know what neuro-linguistic programming is? Okay. So it's like Tony Robbins stuff. It's a way to like break down the structure of language and how we think and how we look at the world. And so it's like, if you're like, I want a new car, and I said, what do you really want? And you're like, well, I really want to be happy. And I feel like that would be kind of it would be called reframing what you think. Like, you want to be happy. And so, like, if you look at the underlying goal is basically to be happy, to be at peace, to be, that sort of stuff. And we think that these external things are going to bring them. Mm-hmm. And then if you really look at what you're going for, why do you want that? You want that because of the internal feeling it's going to create, right? Like, that's what we're all actually after. We're that little protozoa that has like this thing over here that it goes towards it and it feels a resistance to, and this thing over here that it feels like an attraction to. And that's all we are. Like, it's much more complex, but that's what we are. But realizing that so many of the things we do don't work at 22 is freaking scary. It was just like, holy crap, and now what do I do?
So what did you decide to do?
I race triathlons.
Oh. Run away from it.
I mean, it literally, because like you look around and there's no paradigm in our society. I mean, it's interesting. I tried some yoga. I tried Paramahansa Yogananda's meditation. I tried different things, but it didn't. I tried some crazy things like.
Okay.
I've told you, I went down. I got into shamanism and energy healing and stuff like that. I went down and did ayahuasca. And do you know what ayahuasca is? Yeah. So it's, people who don't know, just went meta here, not to freak anyone out. Am I allowed to look in the camera?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's your podcast.
What's up, guys? Josh talking here. So Josh K. Camera one. Hey, ladies, do you like the mustache?
This is going to be so weird for people only listening to audio.
I know, right? So there's cameras in this. For those people only listen to audio, there are cameras. Yeah.
Check it out on YouTube. Give me a like, subscribe.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Make a fake email, subscribe twice, whatever.
Twice is nice. Anyway.
3 times. Hey, that's it. So ayahuasca is this, it's like peyote. It's this, hallucinogenic substance. It's very strong. You do it in the jungles of like, I went to Peru and did it, and it's supposed to be, they say that like you take it and it's like 10 years of therapy in one night. It's not something that is it's not something you do for like play. It's a long, intense experience, and there's purging, there's vomiting, and the other end as well.
It's definitely not an addictive thing.
Huh?
It's definitely not something you're addicted to.
No, it's not addictive. So I went down there and I did that, and like I did it for 4 nights, and it was this great experience and feeling communion. And then I went down like 6 months later and did it again, and it was an interesting experience because I saw the person who was leading it, and I saw his soon-to-be wife, and they were both on the trip. And he's been doing it for 25 years. She's been doing it for 10 or 15. And they're just bickering at each other, right? And they're just bickering. And not to be judgmental, but I want something that if I do it, and I'm doing it for 25 years, I can maintain a relationship. Like I feel like that's kind of a bare minimum. Yes, you're going to have arguments. Yes, you might have that. But not to be like constantly at each other for like 8 days in a row. And it was one of those things that I realized that even these big, powerful experiences, they weren't changing people on a fundamental level. They weren't doing that. So, I mean, I tried I'd read all sorts of crazy stuff. Like I said, I tried different types of yoga. I tried different types of meditation. I tried that ayahuasca. I tried, NLP. I tried...
What's NLP?
Neuro-linguistic programming. That's what I was saying. It's the reframing. I actually went and... did you ever read the book The Game? Mm-hmm. It's about pickup artists, and they, I went and I read a little bit about that, and I was like, maybe if I can get whatever woman I want, it'll make me happy. No, it didn't work. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that it didn't work. I guess we'll transition into what did work. After all this searching, I went to Peru. I almost married a very attractive Swedish girl. I did, all sorts of stuff. And tried just living like by the body, do whatever you want, drink, smoke, do whatever you want, and then tried like the ascetic life of do nothing, and still nothing really. You'd see little changes, right? But I wasn't looking at rolling down the window shades or rearranging the furniture. I wanted to find a way to change kind of who I was, like this type A person who is not like, it's different to sit there and be happy and then act versus I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to do this. It was like I was the horse and something was sitting there cracking the whip and driving me. And
it's an interesting analogy,
isn't it though? Like I'm not choosing it. Most people aren't choosing it. They're just reacting to these impulses. Right. And it's actually I'm going to get this wrong. I know I'm going to get this wrong, but there's like a Zen talking about the mind, and they're like, you need to hold it like the reins of a horse, not too tight, not too loose. Like you need to just like have a gentle thing. They're like, most people, like the horse just directs you. The horse pulls you wherever you're going. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, so that was when I was like 22, 23. And then I spent like 6 years. I was racing triathlons. Actually, I was a professional triathlete for a while doing that. But even then, like I'd win a race or do really well or get a sponsor. And it was like, it wasn't like, okay, I've made it. Or maybe it was for a little bit. And then I was like, okay, back to the grind. And so I found Isha and Sadhguru. I was on a bus ride through Peru, and I was like really depressed actually, because I tried all this stuff, and I like the ayahuasca was so great the first time, and the second time,
you mean the second trip?
The first trip was great. The second trip was solid, but it was like I had a girlfriend down there with me, and we were arguing because like for me, if you go and do that sort of thing, it's like you going and doing it. It's not like a we thing. Mm-hmm. And she wanted it to be a we thing. And then I saw these people who were running it that were at each other's throat. And so I was just like, okay, so this doesn't work. Like, yes, it works, but it doesn't work at that fundamental level of change. Like these people are still arguing about the same little things. Like whatever I wanted, I knew that this wasn't it. And I had spent so much time, I was just like, exhausted, right? I was exhausted. I was tired of being me. I was tired of being that type A person. And I had this moment of like breakdown, and I was like, okay, if I can't find anything, I'm going to go home, and I'm like, life's not worth living. Like I'm going to go put my stuff together and I'm going to kill myself. Because
at that point?
Oh yeah. I was just miserable. Like I was searching for something to fundamentally change me, because it was like, I was tired of dragging a cart around that I didn't want to drag around, to use that metaphor. So I had this moment of breakdown, because I had thought the shamanism and the energy healing, I had experienced things. I experienced things that I can't explain, right? Like I experienced things that don't fit in my logic. So I was like, this is something. But then I looked at it and like, does it truly lead to balanced, happy people? Does it truly lead to like settled people? Can I sit there and close my eyes and just be happy? No. And I was like, well, maybe that nothing will ever get you there, and you're just destined to struggle. So I had that, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go home, get my affairs together, and I just don't want to live if this is the life we're living. And I had like this breakdown. I was like, sent it out into the universe. And I was like, okay, if there's anything that's real, now's the time. You know what I mean? That's basically what it is. I'm like, now's the time. There won't be time later. Yeah, exactly. Like, you got your shot. Take your shot, universe. I'm here. No, I mean, I laugh about it. Like, I'm sitting here and laugh about it. But, like, it was literally, like, I was sitting there, like, figuring out where I was going to do it, figuring out my plans, figuring out all the things I had to do to make it so it wasn't hard on the people around me, as hard, like I think I was delusional to think it wouldn't be hard, but like, so it wasn't as hard on the people around me.
Mixing suicide gently for you.
Well, I was like, I'll go into like, I'll get all my affairs together, have things in places where people can find them. And then I'll go and do it like in the wild and just like email a note. So like 5 days later, someone will get a note and then they'll, you know what I mean? Like, so nobody had to find the body, no one had to do all that stuff.
So considerate.
I know, right? So I'm such a good person. No, I mean, it's just like, it's the state of mind you're in. So we're on this bus ride. Like I had this breakdown the night before. I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, if there's anything, like I'm done. Now's the time. And I had finished my Michael Pollan book. What was it? I can't remember what the book was.
Who's Michael Pollan, the author?
Fast food. No, yeah, he writes a bunch of like nutrition books. Oh, okay. He might write more than that. That's what I knew. But he didn't write Fast Food Nation. He wrote I can't remember what it is. Omnivores Dilemma. It's a fascinating book. So it's basically like if I'm a panda and I only have to eat eucalyptus, I don't have to have this thought process of what to eat. So I have no stress about it. But like us being omnivores, we have to like think about, do I want the biryani rice or do I want the chana? Whatever it is.
I want the General Tso's chicken.
Exactly. I want the General Tso's chicken. So I finished that book and somebody had Midnights with the Mystic. And I read it and I'm not going to be like, it was this amazing experience. I read it and I was like, okay, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. Check him out. And I literally like, it was a 6-hour bus ride. I finished the book. And then I went home and we got to that place where there was internet and I looked online. I was like, okay, this was middle of July, right? And there was a class in LA, like August 3rd. I was like, I can take that. I can put off killing myself till that point. That was literally the thought process, right? And so, hold on, sorry. Okay. I've got like
phone issues.
I know. So I was like, I can put off killing myself for that long. And then I was like, and that was the thought process I went in. And I went in, and it's the weirdest thing because when you do ayahuasca, it's this like energy. It's this weird, intense energy. It's not pleasant, but it's this weird, intense energy, and it's very like visceral. And for me, it was like there was this humming. And it was just, I don't know. I still have no idea what it was.
It's hard to describe.
It is. But it's almost like there's a swarm of bees around you. That's almost the feeling it has. And so when I went in and I took the class, I was like, okay, this is very similar to, what we did with the Paramhamsa Yogananda, like the teachings and that sort of stuff. It's a lot of those things, enough spirituality. It's not stuff that you necessarily haven't seen before. And the breathing and that sort of stuff, the practice. And then we got initiated. And the initiation was, it was like a very distilled similarity to what I felt when I was on ayahuasca. It was different, but like the intensity and something was there. And I was like, oh, there might be something here. I'll cut the suspense. There is. No, but like and I'm not going to be like, it would be easy for me to be like, and then everything changes. No, you have to do the practice. You have to do the stuff. You have to, in Alcoholics Anonymous, so like it works if you work at it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it works if you work at it. And that's like, you get the tools and you get that. But it was, I can sleep now. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
a nice benefit.
It is a nice benefit. I can sleep. I'm not stressed out about everything. I just looked at my phone. I've got to be somewhere in like 30 minutes. And so, but like, I'm not stressed about it. I wasn't like, oh, I got to be somewhere, something like that, which seems like a small accomplishment that I'm not. But for me, I was always on edge. For no reason. Like, I don't have people hunting me. There's nothing like that. There's no like imminent death, but it was always that feeling. And maybe that's why I never found like success, is because it might just be that I was always kind of like on edge, and imminent failure was like a half step away. Right. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but that may be what it was. But it's like, no matter how good something is, you want to break from it, right? You always want to break from it. You could be married to the best person in the world. You want a little bit of your own time. And like in life, no matter how good of a person you are, you need a little break from yourself sometimes. And I feel like yoga kind of like allows you to tune that down and turn it up as, like if I need to be type A, if we have something due, I can go and like hustle and do it. But that's my choice, not, I'm like turning that up.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that dialogue.
Exactly. This one goes up to 11. And this whole joking thing, like I gotta say, I'm speaking about depression and mental illness and stuff like that and laughing about it. And I think that is a testament to the power of some of that stuff, is because it is something that like, it was such a part of my life, like the depression and the anxiety and that like fear and all that sort of stuff. And we can sit here and joke about it. I think I can joke about it because I'm not in it anymore, but I don't think it's a light subject. Like we're sitting here making jokes about it, not about it, but making jokes around it. But I want it to be like, I didn't know. And I actually wrote Sadhguru a letter one time and I was like, literally, and this was 2 years in. And I'm still having like some suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. And I wrote him, I'm like, there's times where I just feel like I want to crawl in a hole and die. Like that's what I feel. And he just wrote back and he's like, just do your practices. I'm with you. It'll go away. And it did. You know what I mean? It takes time and it takes effort, and you're not going to get rid of a lifetime of, 28 years of that. And I mean, maybe you can, maybe some people can, but I'm obstinate and difficult. I'm a mule. I'm very difficult. My mom used to say that to me. My mom would be like, I feel sorry for the girl who marries you because you're difficult.
So you have to go soon, is it?
Yeah, relatively.
How much time do you want to?
What do we have? So like, I'm helping this kid who wants to be an actor, and so I'm helping him tape his first thing. So can we do like 5 more minutes and then maybe have it to be continued if we want?
I'm not sure how that'll work, but
no, I mean like if we want to do a part 2 at some point, not like to be continued of this episode, but I feel like I want to know more about you too. Oh, or like continue the conversation. Just kind of soliloquied.
We'll figure something out.
All right.
Okay, so let's just look at now looking at where we are in terms of like the more present times. Mm-hmm. What do you feel? What would you say is something that you wish people understood that people just don't seem to get around you?
That we're not a half step away from catastrophe. I feel like everybody's still in survival mode, that we're still running around. Like you look at the US and up until the pandemic, like 8 years of pretty good economic, and everybody's still clamoring about the economy. Like it's about to fail, right? Like we're pretty secure, and that doesn't mean we don't have to like keep an eye on things or we don't have to like live responsibly, but we're not in survival mode, most of us. Okay. And there are people out there that are, and I'm not trying to, if people are struggling, especially in the time of pandemic, I'm not trying to talk down to them, but even the people in the US who are struggling, it's not the same as somebody, was it Ethiopia who had the famines recently? Where was it?
I'm not sure.
There were some famines that happened recently. Oh God, I feel like such a privileged American for not knowing where the famines were. But there were we're not dealing with famines. We're not dealing with widespread starvation. There's a couple small changes in our society that we could make, and everybody's food would be taken care of. Like everybody would be settled. And I think looking at it and realizing, we're not a half step away from collapse. If we keep, the ironic thing is if we keep acting like we're that way, it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy because we'll use the resources until they're gone, and then our ecosystems will collapse and all that sort of stuff. But the history of the human race is basically war, right? Like it's struggle and it's strive to survive and stuff like that. And we're not there anymore. And so being able to realize that if I disagree with you on politics, it's not a matter of life and death. It's not a matter of anything like that. If somebody has slightly socialist policies, it's not somebody wanting us to become 1940s Russia or 1960s Russia. It's not that sort of stuff. Or if somebody, you know, regardless of what people say, Trump wasn't Hitler, you know? So it's like realize, like taking a step back and, yeah, there's disagreements on which way to go, but even as a global, a lot of the problems we have are solvable if everybody isn't in the me versus you, only one of us gets to eat thing. I mean, that's basically what it is. We think it's survival. We think kill or be killed. We think stuff like that. And if we can evolve past that, that'll be our salvation.
Mm. Fair enough.
Yeah.
What do you... what would you like to see the next, like, what are you hopeful for the next 5 years or so?
It's interesting because most of my hope for the next 5 years is just personally, like I want to, but that's not like that. So
okay. We can go that way.
I'd like to, hopefully I'll get to a place where I can, like some of the things I've created come to fruition and I can step back and just focus internally for a while. That's for me for the next 5 years. But I'd love to see everybody have like, I mean, really, I'd just love to see everybody have a taste of peace and ease, you know, and realize that like as humans, we have the capability to move past this fight that life has been to a place where it's like we work together, you know, and that I'm hopeful that people can step back from looking at people as other and the enemy, you know?
That would be nice.
Yeah. Like it's not me versus you. Like you and I sit here and we clearly don't, I won't say clearly. That sounds really funny. We don't agree on everything. You can't. Like even in terms of this conversation, if you and I sat down and picked out the minutia of what this conversation was, we have two different experiences. And a third one over there, like running the thing, right? The boss over there,
switching away.
Exactly. So like, there's three in this room. There's three different experiences of what this was, right? Mm-hmm. Because I mean, for me, I'll be like, yeah, I've felt like I just kind of talked a lot, not in a bad way, but I felt like I kind of talked a lot. And I'd be like, I would have rather have it be a back and forth. And for you, you could be like, well, I always get to hear what I have to say. I'm glad to listen to you. Right? Like that's just me presupposing knowing what you are, what you're thinking. But there's no, Sucker said it really good. He's like, you need to realize the difference between like small t truth and this is my truth. This is my truth and the big T truth. Right?
Like existential truth.
And so I think like realizing that we can have separate truths, like everything that led up, my genetics, my environment, my raising, all that sort of stuff led me to believe and sit where I am and have my experience of life. And it's different than yours. And that's not a right versus wrong, but it's just two people, two different, and have like the grace to be like, okay, if I was raised how you were raised, I would be in your chair right now. Mm-hmm. Maybe not sitting as comfortably in that chair, but you know, you're rocking the regal pose.
I mean,
like you're like off with his head. He gets to live. He'll make me laugh. For those of you on just audio, Heath is in a very ornate chair.
It's extremely ornate. I appreciate the craftsmanship.
I know, it's nice.
I will say it's not the most comfortable chair.
No, it's not. But it looks good.
I'll take it.
I think that's endemic of a lot of our society. Not comfortable, but they look good. Yeah.
What to do. Okay, well, since you have to go, we'll kind of close here. Is there any last words you'd like to just say? Anything you want to pass on?
Yeah, I think I know so many people say this, like, if it's possible for me, it's possible for you, but to live a life basically without stress and to be like sitting around here laughing and joking about mental illness that you once had. Like for me, that's a lot of progress. And so I think whether it's through, Heath and I do something through Isha Foundation, we do, or, there's other, I'll just say this. I know that works. So that's why I'm a proponent of that. I'm sure there's other things that work. But it only works if you do it. So find something that works for you and do it, because if everybody gets better, the world's a better place.
Fair enough.
That's simple, right?
Yeah. Find what works for you.
Kumbaya. We all can have mangoes or something.
Oh, mangoes. We were just on a previous podcast talking about this mango dessert they make in Singapore. It's phenomenal. They take mango and they make it in 3 different ways. Like one is just sliced, one is frozen and shaved, and one is something else. And it's just mango, but it's the best thing I've ever had in my life.
There's a restaurant in Mumbai that like they brought out this whipped mango, right? Ooh. And I thought it was mango ice cream. And I'm like, what's in this? He's like, just mango. And I was like, no. Come on, man.
There's some magic sauce in here. What is this?
Come on, man. You can tell me. You can tell me. But he was just like, no, it's just mango. And we just kind of like whip it and like it's light and fluffy and frozen. And I was just like, no freaking way.
Whip it good.
It's not too late.
Oh, God. On that note of mango deliciousness, that's all for today. We'll try and get Josh on here another time to go a little deeper. But otherwise, thank you guys. And Josh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eve. And thank you,
Schwab.
boss.
Why am I the boss?
Don't put such ideas. She'll like it.
The question is how are you not the boss?
Oh, here we go.
All right. Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it because this has been a really fun experiment, getting to know people on a level you don't really get to talk about that much.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have you on again, go a little deeper.
Awesome.
In the meantime, you guys have a good night, good day, whatever you are, whatever time it is.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you in the next one.